Thank you everyone for joining us today. Happy to have you here on a sunny day on Friday. And for those who are as equally excited as myself and our team here for 82 degrees tomorrow. So hopefully everyone has really lovely outdoor plans for this weekend in New York. For those that don't know me, my name is Barton Jackson, he, him. I'm the executive director for nglccNY. And joining me as well is my colleague Gunnar, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Certainly. Afternoon, everyone. Gunnar Gardner, Senior Membership Manager and Certification Associate for NGLCCNY. My pronouns are they, them, and very happy to have you all here this afternoon.
And we're just as excited for this particular lunch and learn. We are being joined and graced by some amazing subject matter expertise in the world of building safe and visible communities for LGBTQ plus diverse and allied populations. And so we have Stonewall in Gives Back initiative with us today to share some really interesting insights into the work that they're doing kind of across different levels of our business communities for the benefit of us all. So with that, I'd love to kick it over for some introductions to the SIGBI team.
Hello, I'm Kevin McDowell. I'm board member of SIGBI, and with me is Mo Williams. Mo, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, yes, I'm Mo Williams. I use he, they pronouns. I'm the program coordinator at SIGBI for over a year now. I'm happy to be in community with you all and looking forward to diving in.
Thank you. And for those, who may have known our guest speaker today in prior iterations of his career, Kevin has done some really, really, really amazing work around strategic sourcing and supplier initiatives, and now is board director for this amazing initiative and organization that is here in New York City and doing some really great local but also global work. So, Kevin, the floor is yours, and please, we look forward to learning more.
All right, excellent. Well, Barton, thank you so much for inviting me, and thank all of you for joining us today. I'd like to tell you the few things that I'd like to share with you today, and then we'll get started. Love to talk about SIGBI, our mission, and the work that we do. I'll talk about the topic of safe spaces, something that SIGBI is very passionate about, and we've built some really exciting initiatives around safe spaces, and I'm real happy to share that with you today. Also, with those initiatives, after sharing that with you, I will make an appeal to you on how you can participate and how you can benefit as an LGBTQ identified individual and also as business owners. So I've got a lot to share and pack into this. I'll start off by telling you a little bit about myself, and I'm ready, Mo. Let's get started. Next slide. So Barton introduced me as a board member of SIGBI, but you might be sitting there going, "Well, who is this guy anyway?" It's like, okay, that's nice. He's a board member of SIGBI. What does that mean, and who is he? So I'd like to start off by sharing a little background about myself. I decided I was going to start with my authentication day, and that was in 1974. And you might be sitting there asking yourselves, what is Authentication Day? To me, that was the day when I became aligned with my authentic self, who I've always been, and then began living it. See, I don't use the term coming out because that sort of suggests that I was one thing one day and then something else the next day. And that wasn't my experience. That day was really a day that I just stopped editing my truth. It was the day that I actually stepped into my truth. And it was a declaration of my real full self, the day that I became authentic. And so that's why I called it Authentication Day. And my day of authentication was in 1974. So that was 51 years ago. But what was really exciting about that, and it is for all of us who experience that, is that it was when I was able to express my authentic self to others and that I worked out that internal alignment that I needed. And so a few years later, about 3 years after that, I moved to what at that time, this was the late 70s, at that time was the gay Mecca. And at least that's what it was referred to. And this was in the late 70s. And things were pretty wild back then. I did a lot of things that I will never admit to, and I did a lot of things that were good as well. But interesting enough, when the 80s arrived, while there were still those good times, the onset of AIDS really hit hard. And I was living in a city that was absolutely devastated, much like New York at that time. And to put things into perspective, not a single friend that I had back then is living today. That's the reality of what we all went through back then. And I am literally the only one of my whole friend group that I had for 10 years. I'm the only one that's left standing. And I share that with you because I often wondered why was I spared? And I came to the conclusion that I was still here because there was purpose, and I still needed to live out that purpose. And all of these years, I let the fact that I'm still here fuel me along with my passions to help others and to make more than just a living, but also make a difference. So I spent 45 years in corporate, 20 years in the hospitality industry, 25 in the C-suite of the world's leading presenter of sports and live entertainment. But as I was doing that, I also had some latitude and I had the freedom to do a lot of community service. So in the course of my work, I had that freedom and passion to perform community-related services, do a lot of volunteer work, offered my services to community-based grassroots causes, and many of them through a lot of those years were focused on empowering Black communities. And other national organizations that I was involved in included the United Negro College Fund, UNCF, SCLC, which was the organization that was co-founded by Martin Luther King. And I also was a major donor to HRC and other organizations, including other board memberships. And one of the boards on which I served was Cyndi Lauper's True Colors United, supporting LGBTQ homeless youth. And I spearheaded my company's commitment to protect the rights and enhance the lives of those who are LGBTQ. And that includes business owners like yourselves. We were members of nglcC and LA nglcC because we were based in Los Angeles. And we were really committed, and especially through the work I did, my company with strategic sourcing, we were committed to including members of nglcC in all of our strategic sourcing programs to help them build their capacity. I am married to a wonderful man who I've been with for 35 years. We've been married for 12. And he's also retired. So we spend much of our time doing those things we couldn't do when we were working. Of course, traveling is really close to the very top of those priorities now. So now in my third year of retirement, just a few months after I retired, I decided to join the board of SIGBI. And I'm excited that I've now been doing that for a couple of years. We also, the day after we retired, we left Los Angeles and moved to North Carolina. And that's where I live now in Charlotte. And so this is where I expect to settle down for the rest of my life. So that's a little bit about my background. I just shared 51 years of my life with you. And it's something that I want to make sure you know who is speaking at this point. Next slide. So what is SIGBI? We've said SIGBI. I don't want to assume everyone knows what that is because it's an acronym. And SIGBI stands for the Stonewall Inn Gives Back Initiative. And back in 2019, and that was the year that we were celebrating the 50th anniversary of the Stonewall Uprising, Liberation Day, and the beginning of the LGBTQ rights movement. I had the pleasure that same year of meeting the co-owner of the Stonewall Inn, Stacy Lentz. And so it was great timing. I'm going to share a story with you and tell you what great timing it was and why. But I learned that while there were many organizations and causes who have adopted the historic Stonewall name, that the Stonewall Inn Gives Back Initiative is the official nonprofit of the Stonewall Inn. And through partnerships and fundraising efforts, including collaborations with organizations like Brooklyn Brewery and the New York Yankees, SIGBI has raised substantial funds to support LGBTQ causes globally. And the initiative also honors LGBTQ leaders and activists through events like the Stonewall Inn Brick Awards, where we reinforced our commitment to advocacy and the empowerment within our community. And what intrigued me the most after I met Stacy was SIGBI's mission to extend the legacy of the movement beyond major metropolitan areas. You think about the services that are available to those of us in the LGBTQ plus community in cities like New York or Los Angeles or Chicago or Atlanta, San Francisco. There are countless services available to those of us who live in those major metropolitan areas. But there are other parts of the country where that's not the case. And one of the things that SIGBI really focuses on is supporting those who live in regions and in areas where that support is needed the most. And I loved that part of the mission. And in doing so, we provide educational, strategic, and financial assistance to these grassroots organizations that exist in those areas, that they too are committed to advocacy and crucial support for LGBTQ plus individuals within their local communities. And my company at the time, when I was there, my company had employees on 4 continents and throughout the United States. And I had employees in Kentucky. And I share that because I remember that we had employees in Kentucky where same-sex couples could get married on Saturday and get fired on Monday for having gotten married. And so that was something that really appealed to me because there then became a really strong business case for us to make sure that we supported the work of SIGBI. And some of the other organizations currently, you might ask, that SIGBI supports, there are so many, too numerous to mention, but I'll mention a few. Rainbow Borderlands Center in El Paso, Texas. Again, one of those areas that doesn't quite have all those services. There's a group in Nashville called Just Us, which is a youth organization there. We support groups in Kenya, Iraq, Alabama, Mississippi. So we're also international in terms of our support. And again, focused especially on those areas that are outside of the major metropolitan regions, and especially those areas that are rural. Next slide, please. So this is our board, our leadership team, really 6 incredible people. Stacy Lentz, from left to right, is the co-founder and the CEO. And as I previously mentioned, she also is the co-owner of the Stonewall Inn. David Studinsky is our board president, and he also is the former chair of World Pride. We also have Angelica Torres, who is an activist locally, does a lot of work in New York, in advocacy work for trans individuals in the trans community. Dara Nye is the board secretary, and she is based out of Los Angeles. And Dara is the operations manager for LA Pride. That's me, of course, and then Stephanie Gale, who also is a board member, who is an executive in the entertainment space. And then the one other person I'd like to acknowledge, who is kind of hanging around on this call, is David Walters of E Pluribus Presents. David actually arranged for this event on our end, and I really greatly appreciate the work, David, you do to keep SIGBI out here sharing our mission, so thank you. Next slide. So SIGBI supports grassroots LGBTQ organizations plus activism across the country. Again, especially in areas that need it the most. And we believe that real change happens at the local level. So that's why we focus on empowering those communities through grants and other means of support to lead their own movements for equality. And that's how we support these organizations. And they are empowered from our support to have a tremendous impact positively on our community within their region. And if you look at this slide here, look at the stats. It says same-sex activity is criminalized in 67 countries. And the death penalty is imposed in 11 countries. There's a reality check here. Gender identity and gender expression is criminalized in 14 countries. And while there's been progress, if you look at the 2 on the right, it talks about some progress, such as those that are mentioned. We still have a long way to go because, honestly, in this current administration, there are so many things that are being done to take our rights away. And when you think about even on Inauguration Day, there was an executive order that redefined gender strictly as male or female based on biological sex assigned at conception. There was another executive order that was signed a month later that was a directive to ban transgender women and girls from participating in female sports teams across all educational levels. And then there was another one that was called Keeping Men Out of Women's Sports. I mean, it kept going on and on. There was another one, executive order, that barred individuals with a history of gender dysphoria from enlisting in the military. There were some healthcare shifts where the administration proposed removing gender-affirming care from the list of essential health benefits under the Affordable Care Act. And several states have enacted laws restricting transgender rights and gender-affirming care. And the Social Security Administration has done some things. Department of Education has eliminated options for students to identify as non-binary. And then you've probably heard, because you're in New York, that the National Park Service removed references to transgender individuals from the Stonewall National Monuments website, which altering historical accounts of LGBTQ events. I mean, it's crazy. And then, of course, we may remember that after Roe v. Wade was overturned, Justice Thomas called for the Supreme Court to reconsider its rulings on same-sex marriage. So we've got to be vigilant here to make sure that that doesn't happen, but it's certainly on the table. Next slide. I want to ask you this. Is anyone familiar with this? It's called the Green Book. I'm throwing that out there, so feel free to respond if you know it. Is anyone? Oh, I saw a yes, I saw a yup.
Yes,
Saw the movie.
very familiar.
Saw the movie. Awesome, awesome. One of you that answered yeah, or yes, would you like to share what you know about it? Okay, I'll do this. I'll tell you. And I'm going way back almost 100 years ago, 1936. The Green Book is formally known as the Negro Motorist Green Book. And it was a travel guide published annually from 1936 to 1966 by Victor Hugo Green, who was a postal worker from Harlem. And it was created to help African Americans safely navigate the roads during the era of Jim Crow laws and widespread racial segregation. And this wasn't something that was just restricted to the South. This was all over the country. And when the Green Book was first published, it offered Black families a kind of roadmap to safety and dignity. And if you were Black in America and planning to drive across the country or even just to the next state, it wasn't enough to just fill your tank and grab a map. You had to prepare, and you had to know where to stop to use a restroom, where to eat a meal, where to spend the night, or even get a haircut without putting your life or your dignity at risk. And this was the purpose of the book. And it let you know which gas stations would serve you, which hotels wouldn't turn you away, which restaurants wouldn't treat you like you didn't belong. And for 30 years, it was an essential companion for millions of Black travelers. And not because they were lost, because America was lost at that time. And having the Green Book was knowing about safe spaces. I remember personally, when I was 11, 1965, and my family took our first really big vacation. And we left Cincinnati en route to New York to see the New York World's Fair. And we didn't have interstates back then, so that was a big trip. And so we knew we were going to probably stay in a hotel somewhere along the way. And I remember so vividly, it was so many years ago, but I remember my father, one of the first things he packed was his Green Book, because it was one of those things where you could not leave home without it. And it was necessary for anyone who was African American at that time to have that for their own safety. There was a documentary that was just done a couple of years ago on PBS, and in that about the Green Book, and I saw a clip in that documentary where a manager of a hotel in Pittsburgh was so excited this is today now, was so excited about the fact that his hotel was in the Green Book, because what it did was bring them a lot of business. And so in turn, it also promoted those businesses that were accommodating to African Americans. And so thus they got a lot of business. And so it was good for them to do whatever it took to make sure that they earned a space in that book. That's the Green Book. So now you know. Next slide. How about this one? Once again, in the chat. Does anyone know what those are? Okay, now I'm getting closer to home here. This is called the Dam Run Guide. And when I began living my truth after my authentication day, someone said to me, Kevin, whenever you travel, always take your Dam Run Guide with you. It will help you find safe spaces that are accommodating to gay men. And I see one response here. I think it's a gay guide. That's absolutely right, because it was originally called the Bob Damron Address Book, then the Bob Damron Guide, and it was an essential and discreet resource for gay men traveling across the United States, and then later internationally, from the 60s, really through the 80s, and it tailed off after the 80s. But it was created by a gentleman named Bob Damron, who was a bar owner. He owned a few bars, one I remember called the Eagle in San Francisco. And he created this guide that functioned a lot like the Green Book did for African Americans, but the Bob Damron Guide was for gay men. And it served a similar purpose, but to the LGBTQ plus community. And it started in 1964, just 5 years before Stonewall, the uprising. And it helped gay men navigate a world that was equally hostile. And if you were gay on the road, and was never safe to assume that a bar or a club was welcoming. So Damron compiled a list, friendly bars of places you could be out, or at least not be in danger. And they were coded, so it would tell you, this is who frequents this business, and it gave you a little bit more information about each of those establishments and why they are accommodating. And it really became known and used extensively. You probably would never meet anyone from the 70s and 80s that did not get their Damron Guide every single year, because they updated it every year. And then they also expanded the guides to include lesbian and trans spaces as well. So it expanded over time to be even more inclusive. So that is the Bob Damron Guide. And once again, it too was about affirmed and confirmed safe spaces. And I'm getting to a certain place here with my explanation and description of the Green Book and the Bob Damron Guide. Next flag. I said slide. I said flag, but I meant slide. So when you see this, and I really would love someone to answer this for us, for me. When you see the progress flag or the pride flag or the trans flag, like flying outside of a business, or you see any of these flags, sometimes you're walking down the street and you see a sticker on the window, and you see that. What does that mean to you? And specifically in the context of safe spaces, does that have any meaning to you when you see the flag? Would anyone like to take a stab at that? I mean, we all see them. So what does that mean to you when you see it?
Well, if everyone's going to be shy, I'll jump in. So for those that don't know this about me, I'm originally from Idaho. And when I celebrated my 22nd birthday, I decided to get myself a tattoo, only to find out that that parlor was run by Brother Speed, which is a biker gang out there. So I had to straighten up real quick and not be super authentic. And then when I was in New York, I decided to get my ears pierced, and I was walking in Hell's Kitchen and saw a place with a giant progressive pride flag. And I said, okay, safe space. This is where I'm going to go. This is where I'm going to do business. I'm going to be all right here. Brought my boyfriend in to watch because he was mortified that I was going to do it. He thought it was going to hurt. And knew that I had a place of community to go to.
Great. So let me ask you a follow-up question. How did you know it was a safe space?
Well, one, I mean, the flag was right in the window. But I also went in. I said, "Hey, are y'all owned by LGBT, folks in the community?" And they said no, but we're really affirming here. We have a number of folks that are of the community. Our main piercer is transgender. Many of our tattoo artists are also LGBTQ plus. So just seeing that in the window and saying like, okay, let me ask, let me know a little bit more. I was comfortable, was able to go.
Awesome. Yeah, that's, as I said, thank you for sharing that. We often see it, and I think a lot of people have different interpretations. Most of the time, though, there's people will see it and they'll go, maybe this is owned by someone who is LGBTQ, or maybe this is a business that isn't, but like in your case, they just want to be accommodating, and then they want your business, and in their minds, it's a safe space for you, and they share that with you. But we don't always know, and we don't know how prepared, the key is we don't know how prepared they are to live that out and be able to understand the uniqueness of our community. And that's something that, if you don't understand the uniqueness of our community, you might want to be a safe space, but not prepared to do so. So let's go to the next slide. So my company, I'll go back at my working days. One of our divisions was music festivals. And we had more than 25 different music festivals. And one of our festivals is one everyone is familiar with. In fact, day one of weekend 2 is happening right as we speak. It was Coachella. And after the first festival took place in 1999, it was started by a company called Golden Voice. Our company purchased Golden Voice and the controlling interests in Coachella Festival. And at the time, it was a one-day music event. But since it had its roots in alternative and electronic genres, we considered ourselves a welcoming, inclusive, progressive, and affirmative space. We were like the cool kids, hey, that's the cool festival. And then it really began to grow. And then 2018 happened. What happened in 2018 is we learned from the ACLU who came to us about 2 transgender siblings who had reported being denied access to restrooms aligning with their gender identities by our festival security personnel. And one of them, a transgender woman, was stopped from entering the women's restroom, while the other, who was transmasculine, was told to leave the men's restroom. And these incidents occurred without any objections from other festival goers who were around and saw that happening. And so in response, the ACLU sent a letter to us and asserted that the festival's actions violated California's Civil Rights Act, which prohibits discrimination based on gender identity and public accommodations. And they demanded that we implement clear policies allowing individuals to use facilities corresponding to their gender identity and provide staff training on these policies. And they also, at the time, threatened legal action if these measures were not taken. So much to our surprise, that while we were saying that we were a safe space, well, we were thinking that we had checked all the boxes. Apparently we hadn't, and especially something as basic and simple as restrooms. And so we acknowledged that the incidents certainly were unacceptable, and we were committing to creating a more inclusive environment, but realized that there was work that we needed to do to make sure that we're including, we're coming up with an environment and creating an environment that is truly inclusive. We created a campaign called Everyone. It's aimed at promoting safety and inclusivity at the festival. And we did a number of things, not the least of which is create all gender neutral restrooms. I mean, it was like, why didn't we do that? And I was really embarrassed because I'm in the C-suite of the parent company. I'm the only gay person there, and yet under our watch, something like this happened. So I realized too, even in the seat that I sat, that there's work that needs to be done in order to make sure that we are truly inclusive. Next slide. So the key to a situation like we faced at Coachella was the need to acknowledge the unique challenges LGBTQ individuals face every day, especially today as things are going. Also, the need to have LGBTQ identified patrons be able to exist in our public space and can be themselves without fear of prejudice or discrimination. And that we take tangible steps to create a space where LGBTQ identified customers and clients are comfortable, feel welcomed, and that they feel a sense of belonging. And notice the results of this survey. And if you look at the survey, the results in that kind of word salad thing to the right, notice what it says. And I point out in the top right-hand corner where it says 86% of those who responded think space should be accredited by a trusted LGBTQ plus organization. And our sources, and thus the survey, were from the UK. So that's why organization is spelled with an S. But would you agree that there is more to being inclusive than just flying a rainbow flag or posting a flag in the window? That there are tangible steps that need to be taken. And clearly from this survey, most people agree to that. So with that in mind, let me introduce you to, next slide. Let me introduce you to SIGBI Safe Spaces. I call it more than a flag. And earlier I told you that the other SIGBI initiative that caught my attention when I was still working was when I was still with a company that cared, but didn't necessarily all the time know how. And I learned about this robust initiative called SIGBI Safe Spaces. And SIGBI Safe Spaces focuses on combating social intolerance by promoting equality, by supporting initiatives that foster safe and inclusive environments. And this program, through a certification process, ensures that public places are safe spaces for those who are LGBTQ identified. And it identifies and promotes businesses, venues, and public spaces that meet specific criteria for LGBTQ inclusivity, such as staff training, gender-neutral facilities, and ongoing community support. And we also want folks who are LGBTQ to support those businesses who not only proclaim that they are a safe space, but have also taken tangible steps to ensure that they are. And we want people to support those businesses. Next slide. So there are 10 key areas on which the certification process focuses. The first is training. As I mentioned earlier, when we had that situation with the festival, the first demand that was out there was that we had training for staff. The second is donations to LGBTQ plus causes, that we would expect someone who, a business who is certified to find ways to support LGBTQ causes on a regular basis. That also their business is inclusive of some type of code of conduct as it relates to LGBTQ patrons, and in the case of entertainment venues and sports venues, fans and customers, that they have gender neutral restrooms, and that they support LGBTQ people all year round, not just in June. So many times you see, especially when you look at sort of corporate, you see companies that are all about it in the month of June or whatever is Pride Month for that location, and then you don't hear anything else about how they're supporting our community and in the other 11 months. So we want to ensure that a business that is certified as a SIGBI safe space does support LGBTQ people year round. Next slide. And then the last 5 here are that there are clear policies and procedures to create a diverse and inclusive workforce or workplace, and that they fully understand proper use of pronouns, that they don't have any regular engagements with anti-LGBTQ partners, that they support elected officials that affirm LGBTQ plus identities, and that they go through an annual recertification with training for employees who had been hired over the past year, so that keeps them current. So every year they're making sure that all of their employees have been trained and using our curriculum that we've created to become a safe space. So I'd like to introduce you again to Mo Williams, who's the program coordinator for SIGBI. Mo is the person who handles all of the safe spaces logistics, starting with registration, and he will briefly review the process. Should you want more detail than what is being shared here, Mo will provide you with contact information so you can speak directly with him and have any of your questions answered. So Mo.
Thank you, Kevin. Just want to give a quick shout out to Kevin for setting the stage for SIGBI. Really important that we get the nuance of why SIGBI exists, why we need these safe spaces, and just happy to be here. But on the more, I guess, logistical, technical vibes, basically, if you are interested in becoming a safe space, what you would want to do is to reach out to me. I do have my email address here on the slide, and we can get you started. Basically, I will give you a welcome email. After that, you will get a link to our LMS system where you can register yourself as well as your business. You're going to get the new user registration up in the right-hand corner. You're going to enter your access code. There's going to be 2 access codes. One for the administrator. That's the person who's in charge of all of the certifications that Kevin just talked about, like proving that you have a code of conduct, that you donate to LGBTQ plus organizations, etc. There are forms that you can fill out to prove that. That's a part of it, and the admin would do that. For everyone else, all of your employees, we like at least 66% of your employees to do the training modules. We know that in this economy, it's not always easy to get everyone to do the trainings, but we want as much people as possible to be on board with what we're putting out there. And so there's many ways to do it. It can be by modules, them doing it in the system. If they're not too tech savvy, you can also show them the video in more of like a TV screen situation. There's many ways we're willing to work with you. We just want to make sure that everyone who's working in your business or organization understands what we're trying to do here. And on the more navigational setting, make sure that your pop-ups are enabled and that you're approved to get emails from us. All of these modules take about 30 minutes max. It's very easy, it's very engaging. We also now have it in Spanish and Italian, and we are expanding that. So if more of your staff is Spanish speaking or Italian speaking, they will also be able to take those trainings. Any tech support, reach out to Safe Spaces at stonewallinitiative.org. Any general inquiries, reach out to me and I can guide you in the right direction. Something to keep in mind, these trainings were developed by queer folks with queer folks in mind. So everything that we're doing, and we're constantly updating it to make sure that we're inclusive as possible. It's not excessive financially or burdensome. We've actually lowered our costs because we really think, especially in these political times, that it's important that we get everyone on board. So we've done the work to make it accessible to, and we're willing to work with you. Even if the price that we do have on our deck isn't working with you, we can work with you. So just reach out to me about that. It's about 30 minutes per employee. And like I said before, it is available in Spanish and Italian. Once you complete those, you will get your official safe space status. You'll be able to put our logos in your place of business, on your website. Some of our folks have made press releases to state that they are now SIGBI certified. The most exciting thing is that, once you complete this process, then you will be added to our heat map, which we're going to talk about a little bit later, right after this slide, actually. But that is the goal, is to create that heat map. What Kevin was talking about earlier, that guide. So when you're traveling, when you're going around, where is it safe? Where can I go? Where is it okay for me to have business here? That's what we're trying to do, just in a more advanced digital way. And that is it. I will pass it back to Kevin.
Okay, I see we're really tight on time here. So I understand if some of you have to jump off, but just need a few more minutes. I wish I had a drum so we could do a drum roll, but I don't have that. So I'm just excited to introduce you to what we are referring to as the heat map. So in the spirit of the Green Book, in the spirit of the Bob Damron Guide, the SIGBI Safe Space heat map is something that we can now use, you can use, anyone can use as a reference to where those safe spaces are. So any business that becomes a SIGBI safe space will be included in that heat map. So next slide. So why it matters is it's a visible, accessible tool for LGBTQ individuals to find safe spaces globally. It empowers businesses to publicly demonstrate their commitment to inclusion, and it helps connect community members with affirming workplaces, services, and venues. And so our goal this year is to expand our safe spaces and thus inclusion in the heat map to rural and underserved areas, and also have an enhanced user experience with search and filter options for easy navigation, both on mobile devices and on computers. And then we want to, this year, as we develop this heat map, increase partnerships to amplify visibility and engagement for businesses. Next slide. So this is a visual. This is what the heat map would look like on your phone. An example that we have here is the Stonewall Inn. Location tells you a little bit about the business, and then it lets you know a little bit more so that when you read it and interact with it, you're fully up to speed on that business, and you already know, because they're included, that they are a certified safe space. Next slide. And all this is a different visual of the same thing. This is how it would look on your laptop or your tablet. And I'm excited to announce, as you can see on this slide, that NGLCC, in collaboration with SIGBI, will include the interactive heat map on its website once we've launched it. And our target is to launch sometime in May, but we want to make sure that we're launching at a time where we have enough businesses on there to do so. So it may happen in May, it may happen shortly thereafter, but it's coming. And when it comes, I think it's really going to take off as well, and we'll be able to get a lot more businesses certified at that time, once they become aware of what we're doing. Next slide. And we're going to move along pretty quickly because we're almost out of time. This slide of some of the businesses that large organizations that have become certified. One is the US Open Tennis Championships, the other is New York Marathon, and then another is Crypto.com Arena and Peacock Theater, which is in Los Angeles. Next slide. This is just a visual of the celebration that we had when Crypto.com Arena, formerly known as Staples Center, and Peacock Theater, which is adjacent to that hosts a lot of award shows, Emmys, American Music Awards, ESPYs, that those venues were certified also as SIGBI safe spaces. So they took those tangible steps to make sure that they are included and they are an inclusive environment. Next slide. And these are just a few others. I just want to point out real quickly the Abbey. A lot of you probably know what the Abbey is. If not, it's really a cornerstone of LGBTQ scene in West Hollywood. It's a club, and even though they are known as sort of the heart of WeHo, and it's still, they understand and understood the need for them too to become certified as a SIGBI safe space, and they thus have gone through the process. And so we're happy to say that the Abbey is a SIGBI safe space. Next slide. We're almost near the end. I'd like to show you this video of Ravi Roth, who you've probably seen before, who travels around the world. And Ravi wants to talk, they want to talk about SIGBI and safe spaces. No sound.
Hi everyone, my name is Ravi Roth and I use they, he pronouns, and I am a YouTuber, content creator, activist, speaker, and travel host with my brand Ravi Around the World, and I explore queer culture globally. As of March 2025, 64 countries still criminalize homosexuality. That's why I'm passionate about finding and celebrating spaces where LGBTQ people can feel safe, seen, visible, and heard. In the US, it feels like new bills are introduced almost daily by the current administration targeting queer folks. That makes safe spaces even more essential to me. Imagine arriving in a new destination and knowing that you can walk into a bar, a cafe, a bookstore, a restaurant, or a hotel and not only feel safe, but truly thrive as your authentic self. What the folks at SIGBI have built with the Safe Spaces certification program needs to go even more global. While we hear plenty in the news about anti-LGBTQ establishments and anti-LGBTQ voices, there are countless places and faces that stand with us. They just need the right training and resources. And that's exactly what SIGBI provides. What I love about SIGBI is that it's not some performative organization. They give back. Hello, powered by Stonewall. They're at the forefront of the gay rights movement, making a tangible difference. It is crucial that companies get their spaces certified as safe. In the face of anti-woke, anti-DEI legislation, we need to respond with love and advocacy and protection for our community. And I mean the whole community, especially our trans and non-binary siblings. Safe spaces aren't just important, they're essential.
Thank you. Next slide. So I only have 2 more slides here. And you know, as leaders in inclusive business, your partnership is key to expanding the reach of the Stonewall and Gives Back Initiative Safe Space Certification Program. And so I am asking NGLCC members, corporate partners, and the wider LGBTQ+ community to join us in creating a national network of visibly safe spaces where LGBTQ+ people are welcomed, affirmed, and protected. So I'm asking you to get certified, display it proudly, and help us identify other public venues where safety and belonging should be the standard. And I'm talking about all businesses, all sizes. Heck, if I owned a bakery in Kentucky, I'm getting a certification because we know there have been instances, I think Kentucky is that place where bakeries wouldn't make wedding cakes for same-sex couples. And as a business owner, you know, it's an opportunity really also to do what you should do in terms of treating people with dignity and respect, but also it helps your business. Next slide. And then this is for all businesses, whether you're members of NGLCC or not. But SIGBI, we want to partner with you to promote your business by having a presence on the heat map. And we want to help, we want to help you build your capacity, much like that hotel in Pittsburgh I shared with you, and grow your loyal customer base. Because honestly, LGBTQ folks, we are a huge market. And today, the estimated buying power of LGBTQ community in the US exceeds $1.4 trillion. And this figure comes from YTech Communications, one of the most respected research voices in this space and a long-term partner, actually, of NGLCC. And their work has helped corporate America and public institutions better understand the incredible economic strength and influence of LGBTQ+ customers. And this number isn't just about spending, it's a clear indicator of the value that our community brings to the marketplace and the importance of inclusive business practices. Next slide. So with that, please join us in this effort. We seriously welcome your partnership. Next slide. And I'll leave you with this, because I also just want to share my inspiration real quickly, and that is my inspiration is this man in this photo. It's what drives me. And this was displayed as part of a civil rights exhibit at the Cincinnati, Maine Public Library. And the one holding the sign that says human rights over states' rights led a chapter of one of the largest civil rights organizations called CORE. And he fought for civil rights for African Americans in the 50s and 60s. And yeah, he is my inspiration. He's also my father and the person who taught me to not only make a living, but make a difference. And I challenge all of you to do the same. Next slide. Thank you for inviting me. And thank you in advance for your support of SIGBI and allowing us to support you.